Focus up, nerds. It's time to stack those 60s. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Brawl podcast. It's great to have you along. My name's Riley Knight. I'm the host, and of course, joined this week and every week by my two co-hosts. First up, we have Toffel Severin.
Hello.
And joining us, of course, every week as well, it's Jamin.
That's me.
That's you. Yep. Correct. Already. 1 out of 1 from you, my friend. 5 stars.
100%.
100% so far. We'll see if you can keep up that record. M19 is, only a couple of weeks away, and we intend to bring you up to speed this week with everything you need to know about how it's going to impact the Brawl format. There is a lot to talk about. Not only have we got Elder Dragons to talk about, of course, finally, we're getting some proper 3-color commanders for Esper, for Bant. It's going to be fantastic. But a lot of other cards that you guys have picked out for us to look at.
Indeed. Although we're having a core set released, there are still plenty of exciting cards, especially for Brawl, since we can go deeper even into the maybe not standard playable cards, but we can dig a bit deeper.
Yes, all the shabby 2-drops.
Yeah, all of them.
Is there actually a thing in you that hopes to replace some of the bad 2-drops, or you're just hoping that they just acquire more baddiness?
No, of course I want to improve my decks, but we will get to the playable 2-drops later. And I promise they are playable.
Well, playable in the sense that it's legal to register them in your deck at least. Anyway, let's get to it. We've got a lot to talk about this week, but before that, of course, it's time for the catch-up. It's time for the catch-up. So as I mentioned to you two just before we started recording, I'm fresh off the plane back from Pittsburgh. I was over in GP Pittsburgh covering. I was in the booth with Reed Duke. I don't know how much you guys watched of the coverage, but it's good to see Standard sort of back on track. Before the GP, so basically every time I go to a GP, I do spell slinging, right, which is always good fun. I took my Brawl deck along and got beaten mercilessly. But I also did the bounty event, playing Sealed, right?
Yes, there always is one.
Yeah, and it was good fun. They had those special lands, like the Grand Prix lands, to give away as prizes as well. So that was kind of cool. But I went 2-1, right? And my deck was insane. It had Khan. It was like this 3-color monstrosity. It was insane. It was really, really, really good.
So you opened the best colorless rare, and you still went for 3 colors?
I still went 3 colors, yeah. I had Slimefoot and Tatiova and Grow from the Ashes, and it was sick. The deck was really, really good, right? Anyway, so I'm 2-0, and I sit down across from this guy, and he did this thing that just tilted me beyond belief, more
Winning?
than no. Well, yes, that. But what? Oh my goodness! We're talking beyond mismatch basics. We're talking beyond lands in front of spells.
Okay.
What this guy did was bonkers, and he was a cool dude. We had a good chat, and he was a totally fine opponent to play against, and it was there's not a knock on him in that sense, but he did something that just ruined me. Right, may have had something to do with why I lost actually. Anyway, Joni did. Whenever he announced his cards, he just used the first word of the card, right? Not the whole card text. I mean, sometimes you abbreviate the card, right? For example, you'll say Journey Mage instead of Academy Journey Mage. But you know what he did? He would say Academy. His first... No, it ruined me. His first play of the game was a Navigator's Compass. And so he went, tap his island or whatever, and he said, Navigators? And I was like, what? Navigators
you can make
what?
a game out of that. You can always finish his cards.
No, because I'm there. It was... Okay. So
I say cards, Academy,
for some cards
you
it was
say...
For some cards it was kind of fine, right? When he cast a Cloud Reader Sphinx, he was like, Cloud Reader? And that's fine, because you know what that card is. But then when he played Yavimaya Sapherd, he just said, Yavimaya? And I couldn't deal with this. I was so focused on that. I don't know. I actually milled myself out in game 1 because I had Khan and a bunch of card draw spells and Tatiova and stuff, and I got to the point where he was on 29. Oh, because he cast
did the
Rescue
same. You
on
said
his
Karn
own.
and Tatiova.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, but that makes sense. This is my exact point. This is my exact point, right?
So you get to pick which word makes sense to abbreviate a card with.
No, I think it's okay. So if you cast a Gilded Lotus, what would you say?
Gilded.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You're just being an ass. You definitely would never say that, right?
I don't know. Probably.
I'd probably say Gilded Lotus. I wouldn't say Lotus. Like, unless Lotus is an established card in that format.
But you could say that. For example, he had a Helm of the Host, right? And he said Helm when he played it, and that makes perfect sense, right? But, you know,
it would be
when
so
he was
much
playing,
better if he
when he
said
was playing other
host.
cards. Like when he plays Crozen Druid, he just said Crozen. I couldn't deal with it. I don't know if you're laughing at me or at this guy, but I could not deal with this.
It's just a good story.
Anyway, do you know what? And as well, like I haven't thrown too much shade at this guy, and he did beat me. So you know, obviously he knows something that I don't, because in game number 3,
Navigators.
his first turn was Navigators, and his second turn was rescue his Navigators, recast Navigators to go to 29. And yeah, I think that was his life total when he beat me. So obviously he knows something about Dominaria Limited that I don't. But yeah, I got crushed.
How did you go to 29 by playing 2 Navigators Compass?
He played it 3 times. He played. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention the second Navigator's Compass that he played later on in that game. But he won the game on 29. He was playing 2 copies of Navigator's Compass.
Well,
again, not necessarily laughing at him. I don't want to be too nasty to this guy. He did 3-0 the sealed event, so
What was the feature?
something.
Like, was it playing something with those things, or
He was playing Muldrotha. He had a Muldrotha.
yeah, but you cannot sacrifice it. It would be so much better if you can sacrifice it.
Sure, I don't know if he put rescue in specifically to bounce his Navigators. In any case, it just ruined me.
But you know, if you can tap 6 lands and play Gravetide, that's pretty strong.
Okay, all right. I you know, there's actually I'm now realizing the mistake that I've made, because as we go through all these cards in M19.
Oh no! It was
gonna be saying
actually
stuff
in my
like,
head. No, why did you do that?
Well, I don't want this to become part of the culture of this podcast. Speaking of the culture of this podcast, did you guys see how I made a promise? I made a promise to the listeners, and I delivered on that promise. I'll tell you this much. Did you see when old mate kicked a fight with fire to win the tournament?
Yeah.
Was it the game of Magic?
And that's the game of Magic. I'd love to bring that
What
one
did he
up.
kick? A fight?
He kicked it. Oh. So this week it's all about M19 and the impact that the set is going to have on the Brawl format. We mentioned briefly the fact that despite this is a core set, it probably will change a lot about the Brawl format. Before we get into sort of a card-by-card analysis here, what are your general expectations of what's going to happen with M19 and Brawl?
So since Brawl is not that stable as like Standard is right now with Chain Whirlers and Control decks, I expect every set to have some nice additions for some decks and hopefully some new legends that you can play. Almost all the decks you can build that are built correctly are good decks for a league, I'd say. And we will see there are some nice commanders in there that have some interesting strategies, and I think they might be just really good.
Well, let's talk about some of those commanders that we're going to see entering the fray once M19 joins us. I think probably the headlining cards for this set are the new Elder Dragons. Some of these are really, really powerful. Some of them, perhaps not. Let's kick things off and start with the meanest girl in school. Nicol Bolas the Ravager. This is yet another Grixis commander here for the Brawl format. How much is Nicol Bolas going to change things on that front?
Jesus, this card is so powerful. If you get to cast it on turn 4, it's a 4-mana 4/4 flyer that generates card advantage while it enters the battlefield. And if you somehow have 7 mana lying around, you get to like have this absurd planeswalker. Like, this is much better than Admiral Bucket Brass. Also, it doesn't force you to play bad pirates.
I mean, you still have the option, of course. You can still,
of course, yes.
You can still play Grasping Scoundrel with Nicol Bolas the Ravager. You just don't have to anymore.
You are still allowed to do that, yes.
Jamin wouldn't be in Brawl if he would be denied playing bad cards. I see that this is very hard to kill in Brawl, which is nice. I don't like it for Standard that much because usually it just dies to a lot of things. And it's very... Yeah, like discarding a card is nice, but it's not what you want to do for 4 mana in general, right? And if this stays on the battlefield, it's not a huge threat most of the time, except if you can reach the 7 mana point. So in Brawl, it doesn't... Like, how many cards do kill that? 1 Contempt, maybe like a Chandra. I don't know.
Yeah,
They're maybe like
4 toughness is actually a breaking point for like red decks, right? Because they can't kill it with the cheap removal anymore, but there are still lots of spells that kill it. Like Chandra, there are new ones. Then there's like Flame Lash, Glorybringer.
Nope. Yeah.
Oh, it's a dragon.
I was so ready for you to fall into that trap, dude, and I'm so glad that you did. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not an elder dragon, it's an elder and a dragon, which means it is a dragon, and therefore Glorybringer proof.
Yep.
Not to get confused by the Glorybringer proof, which is when somebody said Glorybringer is not that good, and I killed him with 3 Glorybringers, and he was sad.
And that was a Glorybringer proof?
Yeah.
That was kind of weak.
Yes.
Also weak are the two other dragons that sort of are already covered by existing color combinations. So we have Vevictus, Marty, and Palladium Moors. And you guys are just you're not into these cards at all. You said
No, they just like one of them has to attack to do something, and that's a 6 mana dragon, which is kind of like a bad combination of stuff. Like, if something needs to attack to be good, it needs to win the game. And this just replaces permanent, which is bad. And the other one
also needs to attack to do something, because it's a 6 mana, 6/6 flying vigilance trample. And while it doesn't have hexproof before it deals damage, that's like, why would I just play a vanilla creature, basically?
I mean, it actually has to attack to do nothing, right?
Yeah.
it gets worse after it attacks. Yeah, I like the fact that this is also just stealth from Hearthstone.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's very true. If you want to play Naya or Jund, you're better off just playing Zakama or Darigaz as your commander.
Let's chat about the other Elder Dragons, however. We've got Arcades, the Strategist, and Chromium, the Mutable. I wrote about these guys on Channel Fireball, and Yamin, you helped me out a little bit with the lists that ended up being put up in that article. Man, the thing that kind of stinks about Arcades, I mean, such a cool ability and such a sweet kind of build-around card, but there are just no decent defenders, or at least not enough of them for this deck to come together.
Oh my god. How do you dare talking badly about Gleaming Barrier?
Well,
it's a 2 mana 0/4 that generates a treasure when it dies.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but it's also, I mean, how many other defenders are there in the standard format that you actually want to play? I mean, there are only 11 that you can play. And 2 mana 4/4s are great, but I mean, this is just not happening.
I don't think
Wall
they're
of
even
Mist,
11.
That's a 2 mana 5/5, and then Wall of Vines, that's a 1 mana 3/3. Yeah, it all sounds kind of mediocre.
Well, so you get up to like 4 and 2.5-ish playable walls.
Yeah, and that's including the ones that are like half playable cards.
I mean,
you're adding up fractions there.
The thing is, the walls actually get pretty good, right? If you play Consulate Skygate or Wall of the Forgotten Pharaohs, that's 2 mana 4/4s, and you know you will attack with them once you played Arcades,
yeah.
Arcades.
Arcades.
So even I think even the Amaranthine.
Yeah, crushed it. Well done.
Thank you. Wall is not that bad in that context because, well, worst case, she blocks, and she blocks quite well. But those are not a lot. Like, there's as you said, maybe 7 walls you would put in your deck.
Yeah, and with 7 walls, that's just above 10%.
Also, there's a bit of this awkward thing that you will play the walls before, but they draw something after.
Yeah, you want to save them for after you played your commander, but then you need to play them early to, defend your life total.
Except I think this is more like a bonus thing. What happens? Oh, I draw this, I can draw a card now instead of something you should rely on. And it actually feels a bit like a trap. Like, people read this like, okay, I'm saving my walls and then I will draw cards later, but it might be just too dangerous to do this.
Yeah, like, when you're dead, you don't have time to draw cards anymore.
I think the sweetest thing about this card is that it is, it's new. We don't have a bad commander, now we do, and so that opens up new options to, as to how to build a deck instead of playing just a mediocre kind of, an essentially unplayable hill giant in Joda Archmage Eternal there. We now actually have a respectable bad commander.
And it's still 3/5 flying vigilance. Like, as we said, 4 toughness is nice. 5 is even better, because then we get really down to a handful of cards that can kill it. And, well, it attacks and blocks. And once you untap, you might be able to just protect it with some counter spells. So attacking gets really dangerous for your opponent.
I'm excited to see what happens with this card, and also excited to see what happens with Chromium the Mutable. We finally now also have an Esper commander, and this one I think is we got some real hot sauce here.
Do you want to know the lore of Chromium? Because he actually was reprinted.
Sure, great. I mean, yeah, this podcast isn't already going to be obscenely long and difficult to edit.
Did you know that he was in Innistrad?
What?
No.
Yeah. Okay, it's a bit tricky, but do you know a card named Hexproof Stalker? Invisible Stalker?
Wow.
Hexproof Stalker.
Yeah, Invisible
Can I
Stalker.
add the 45 seconds that joke took to a ledger of time that you now owe me?
Okay, yeah. No, but this is great. Hear me out. Once you discard a card, it's basically Invisible Stalker, right?
Oh, so I can pay 7 mana and discard a card every turn to have an Invisible Stalker?
It's pretty good.
Sign me up.
Sometimes that's what you want.
Definitely better than a 7/7 flying.
I
mean,
think-
that's easy to block.
I think this card might be in a contest with Teferi.
This card's fantastic.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
card's great. Like this, we can talk about its role in standard. That's not really what we're here to do. But like this card is going to be huge.
Like, it says so on the cards. It's a 7/7. But yeah, no joke. Having a commander with flash is super important, right? Because you get to pass the turn, and if your opponent doesn't do anything, you just flash in this bad boy. And what are they going to do? Like, if they do something, you get to counter that. And if they don't, they, face down that 7/7 flyer.
We've talked about building control decks in Brawl and about how if you can use your commander as a win condition, then you don't need to play any others because you always have access to it. This is what the Scarab God does, for example. And Chromium for me is just a perfect example of that. You can now play winless, like no win conditions. I was going to say winless control, but that's not exactly what we're aiming for here. But you can play no win conditions in your quote unquote main deck and just have this guy ready to rumble whenever you get to 7 mana. This card's fantastic. I can't wait to play with this card.
Yeah, people played Nezahal because it was protectable with your cards and you only need this as a win option. But it actually was very resourceful to protect it, because once your opponent plays a removal spell, you had to discard, and then you had to discard again because they probably did something again. So it's not that it was safe, but this card is just safe, like there's nothing they can do besides maybe casting Wrath of God. But they're like, which card gets rid of this? Honestly, like maybe if people play Fumigate, which I don't think is a Brawl card in general.
But I mean, if they're casting a Fumigate as a 1 mana, as a 1-for-1 removal spell,
yes,
that's fine.
Yeah,
you just
we're probably
recast it
fine
next
with that.
turn.
Yeah, also you can just recast it. So this is super reliable. And also, I feel like adding black to blue and white is amazing.
Oh, yes. Like, having black removal is huge.
Or alternatively, playing blue-black, splashing white for this, for Teferi, maybe for a couple of other bits and pieces here and there. But I'm just so glad that we've got now, 3-color control decks on the menu. And I think this card is going to be huge in Brawl moving forward.
Yeah. Also, that's a nice pairing, like being expensive in Flash, because as you feel from Nicol Bolas, you cast it and then it just dies. But since your cards will be active in instance anyway, Flash is so broken. Also makes combat super awkward.
Yep. So to sum all that up, it's just very good.
Maybe just a subtle thing, like there's a feature match coming up. Some people can decide who plays what, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind playing a Chromium.
You got your eye on it already, huh?
No, I already achieved victory with the Scarab God, and I think this would be like
the perfect follow-up. The 3
next
from
step.
3 for you, Toffel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you can give Jamin whatever he wants. I don't care.
Oh
well, I'm still hoping to see the 40 rat colony deck. To be honest, so we'll see what comes in the next feature match. But that's our take on the. Well, I was going to say the 3. I guess it is only really 3 Elder Dragons. We're not huge fans of Palladium Moors or Victus, but it's going to be good fun to rock and roll with, especially our new friend Chromium in the Esper colors. And I mean, Band is probably my second favorite 3-color combination. So yeah, I'm happy to have Arcades around as well. Let's move on and have a talk about some of the other potential commanders that M19 is going to bring us. Sai, Master Thopterist. This is the 3-mana 1/4, 2 and a blue for a 1/4. It's a human artificer, and it says whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and it's got an activated ability, 1 and a blue, sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card. This is a very, very obvious build around, and we still have Kaladesh with us for the time being, so are we just building an artifact deck here?
Well, things I love about this card is it gives you immediate board impact. You know, many of the sweet artifact synergistic decks or commanders only provide value in weird ways, or like ways that don't influence the board. Look at Jorah, for example. She draws cards, and that doesn't advance your board, or like, but advancing your board is super important because this builds blockers that then like prevent your life total from going too low. So that's something I love. And then it also has 4 toughness, which is huge.
So when you use a card that has something to do with artifacts, it usually is something that you play with artifacts that are bad. And drawing cards is nice because, well, they replace themselves. If you play Mox Ember, that's nice to draw a card. But then you spend your time casting artifacts that draw cards, but that don't even do anything in the process. And making the Thopter every time is at least giving you chump blockers to get your engine going. And once you cast like 2 artifacts each turn, you can sacrifice those Thopters or the artifacts to draw more. And as you said, like this also you can just play turn 3 and it blocks. It's, I think, an engine that is worth using because it's also providing you with the board state for winning and defending.
I mean, yeah, it's not the most sort of overwhelming package at first read, but I think that Sai is going to be a bit of a role player, especially if there are enough artifacts to sort of power that are worth playing to power this engine. And as you say, Toffel, if it gets traction and you're creating, several, maybe, upwards of 4 artifacts a turn, then I think Sai, could have something to say in Brawl. One last commander we want to talk about before we get on to the other cards that are going to fill out your decks or maybe be upgrading to existing slots, and that's one of the planeswalkers. I have to say that, generally speaking, and not just from a Brawl perspective, the 5 planeswalkers that are being printed in M19 are pretty unimpressive, really. Maybe Ajani's going to get something done, but I don't know. These are not exciting cards.
I actually love
from
these
my perspective.
planeswalkers because they are very fringe. They are not just the usual planeswalkers that we get that you just slot into your sideboard if you need more value. These are actually really specific, and if they're going to see play, they're going to be strong, but only like in those sub themes. I enjoy that as a different approach.
That's a good point. Yeah, you've kind of changed my mind a little bit because they aren't just the generically powerful, Gideon ally of Zendikar type planeswalkers. They are all kind of niche. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. All right, well maybe I'll reevaluate my perspective on it. But why don't you guys share your perspective on Liliana, Untouched by Death, because this is a card we've identified as a potential commander in Brawl, especially because of her zombie synergies.
Yeah, the question is, like with the artifacts, will there be enough support for this theme? Because she's obviously only good with zombies. Like, her plus doesn't do anything really. Her minus is protective if you have zombies, and if you can use her as a double removal spell, then she's really good. 4 mana, killing 2 creatures, or maybe killing something, casting some zombies back is good. But well, you have a restriction ball that you can only play the cards one time, and that's even worse if you can only play the cards from a certain type one time. So this might be a Jamin deck, right? Because it's even more restrictive and you have to probably play even more bad cards than before.
Yeah, you're only playing one color, right? You can only play black zombies. Yeah. Like with Beckett Brass, at least you could play like all the bad pirates in 3 colors, but here
you only get all the bad zombies in black. For those of you who haven't seen Liliana Untouched by Death, she's a 4-cost planeswalker, 2 black, comes in with 4 loyalty, +1. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, and if at least one of them is a zombie card, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. -2, target creature gets -X, where X is the number of zombies you control, and -3, so she can come down and quote-unquote ultimate straight away. You may cast zombie cards from your graveyard this turn. So, and I mean, we've got a fringe kind of +1. We've got a removal as a -2, and then a sort of Yawgmoth's Will type card for the -3. again, requires a lot of setup. It does have to be built around pretty severely. I mean, I just are there enough zombies in the card pool?
They added some with M19, notably Death Baron, which is a zombie lord, and then some other ones. I think overall it's not going to be enough, but well, we'll see, and I'll try it out, hopefully.
I mean, there are some other pretty respectable cards. There's they've reprinted Shambling Ghoul. There's also Walking Corpse. So we can play vanilla 2-mana 2/2s and get it done with Liliana with that. I mean, Jamin, I can almost hear you licking your chops from here, my friend.
Yeah, playing vanilla 2-mana 2/2s is just meh.
So it appears that until now, excluding M19, there are about 8 zombies you can play.
Ugh.
Okay.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So it looks like it suffers from the old Arcades problem with us not having enough defenders. We also don't have enough zombies.
Yeah, like the problem is, and that's basically the knockout. All of the zombies are from Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation.
And they're all white. Yeah.
No, they're not white. They're just black. Like you can only use black.
Sure, but there are a bunch of decent white zombies as well, like Unraveling Mummy and whatever else it'd be sweet to include.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. They spread the zombies over a few colors. Like some of the embalm stuff is also considered a zombie when you flashback it.
Yeah,
and
right.
The mono black cards are just not good enough. Like you have Liliana and you have some really strong cards. You have Liliana's Mastery, Lord of the Accused, which is the other lord from Amonkhet. You have Black Belcher, but it ends there. And I don't see this happening, unfortunately. Like,
So mana black zombies, just not deep enough.
Yeah, well, maybe the Golgari clan will bring us something when we return to Ravnica.
Yeah.
We will see. But let's move on from the commanders here. These, I mean, obviously there are plenty of other legendary creatures. There are other planeswalkers and that sort of stuff in M19. We're not going to go over them because, generally speaking, we don't anticipate that they'll have a huge impact on that commander slot. Let's talk about individual cards themselves. We're going to go through not every single card. This isn't going to be obviously a comprehensive set review. We're just going to go through the ones that we expect to perhaps have an impact here or there. Let's go through by color, and we'll kick things off with red. First up, we've got Dark Dweller Oracle. It's a 2-mana 2/2, and a Goblin Shaman, and it's 1 and a red, and it says, pay 1, sacrifice a creature, and you can exile the top card of your library and play that card this turn. They really need to keyword this ability because they're using it more and more in red, but you get a Chandra Zero activation.
I heard people refer to it as impulse draw, like because it's an impulse, you can only use it until the end of turn.
I don't like that though, because Impulse is also a card that has a particular
magic card. I can see.
Isn't that perfect for you? Like you can sacrifice your bad creatures to get a different card?
Yeah, I can sacrifice my bad creatures to get more bad creatures. No, but for real, this goes specifically into Karizev. You can sacrifice the monkey token at end of combat.
Oh my goodness,
I love
that's
this.
so good.
It's like drawing 2 cards a turn by paying 1 extra mana each turn.
Jeez, that's really good. I mean, that's not going to be any good on turn 3 or anything, but I mean, you get to turn 5, you're attacking with Karizev, especially if she's your commander, because you can just keep slamming her in there and drawing extra cards off Ragavan, even off her maybe as well, if she's not attacking particularly profitably.
Yeah, like this is very strong.
Wow, that's actually a really cool angle.
Usually those sacrifice abilities are kind of a removal protection because their abilities, you can use them once they target something, but this is a bit awkward because that's not happening most of the time. So you actually have to proactively sacrifice something. But then again, like if you have something that you can sacrifice, you can also use some tokens, right? Like if you have the hidden stockbuy, for example, that would be a good combination.
It would also require you to play Mardu, but...
No, I know. Like, you can play Joda. Boom. No, but like if you have something that has a consistent source of tokens, that turns them into stuff.
This will provide a lot of value.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on this one. I think, especially what you were saying about Karizev. This is, and we're looking for 2-drops in decks like that anyway. So this will be a good one to include. We've got another 2-drop coming up now. Viashino Pyromancer. This is as 1 and a red for a 2/1, a Viashino Wizard. And when it comes into play, it does 2 damage to a target player or planeswalker. Why is this a card that you've highlighted? This effect doesn't seem too strong.
It's a shock piled onto a 2-mana 2/1. How good is that?
Doesn't target creatures. I mean, I guess it's great if you're facing down against an opposing planeswalker as a commander, but this card's a bit of a stinker.
What? I love it. I will play this over the 2-mana 2/1 Menace Pirate in mono red.
Well, that's not saying much at all, my friend. Goblin Trailblazer isn't exactly a constructed all-star.
Well, I didn't say that this wasn't a constructed all-star. I just say that Viashino.
I don't want to play this game with you. All right, well, okay. Look forward to Jamin losing many games of Magic after burning his opponent for 2 with a 2-mana 2/1.
You underestimate this.
I don't think it's possible to overestimate it.
I mean, it's not bad. At least it's a 2-drop that later is somewhat of reach, right? So,
yeah.
It's most of the 2-drops you draw late, excluding broken cards like Earthshaker Kenra, are useless, or at least very not useful. So this can do something. And if in one case, if this destroys a planeswalker, that's glorious. Like,
all right,
so
okay,
it's a 2-drop with reach later on, although it doesn't actually have reach. Next up, we've got Goblin Motivator.
We do. Wow, I thought really you ready to take your feet off my toes there, or what's going on here? I mean, I don't contribute very much to this show. I know, Yamin. I don't really need you to chomp my flavor even further.
I think you misplayed. You should have. Next up, we have Goblin.
Oh my goodness, I really regret telling this story. Goblin Motivator is a 1-mana 1/1. It just costs a red for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior, and you can tap it, and it says target creature gains haste until end of turn. So I guess you can tap it to give itself haste, which...
Yeah, and if you then somehow manage to untap it, you can attack the turn it comes into play, although like you somehow needed to activate the ability it comes into play.
How did you get haste in the first place?
There's a card that lets you activate tap abilities.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then if you untap it, then you can attack.
Wow.
Yeah, sweet.
Okay. Glorious.
So easy game. But for real, this is just another Bloodlust Inciter, and I've played Bloodlust Inciter in mono red. I wouldn't it's not the best card, but it's a cool card and it makes your curves even more powerful.
So would you play 2 of those?
Yes. Pretty straightforward, I think.
I mean, sure. If it's a desirable effect and you enjoy having access to something like this, I guess you just slam the second copy. And it's also, I guess it's nice for you to know that you'll have this after rotation as well.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I like it. Like a lot of those cards from Core 19 are at a place where they are reprints already in standard, but you will realize they rotate out soon and they want to keep this. And like Shock, for example, is the same.
Yeah.
And apparently this is important enough to be in the format, which excites little Brawl enthusiasts for bad creatures. Woo! Woo.
We've got a few more 2-drops here to look at in red. First one, Lightning Mare. This one is red, so double red here for a 3/1 elemental horse. It can't be countered and can't be blocked by blue creatures. This is part of an uncommon cycle. And it's got kind of rubbish fire breathing, 1 and a red, and it gets +1/+0 until end of turn.
I think this is good enough. If this goes unchecked, imagine this is the last creature on the board. You have 4 mana. This hits for 5. This can hit very hard. But yeah, I think it's just barely good enough.
Barely good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a noise a sheep makes. I don't know if you've quite... I mean, you were close. It wasn't too bad. We've got another questionable 2-drop here, Dismissive Pyromancer. So 1 and a red for a 2/2 human wizard. It says red and tap, discard a card, draw a card, so you can loot. Or you can pay 2 and a red, so 3 mana, tap it and sacrifice it to deal 4 damage to target creature. All right, here we go.
Yeah, burn, keep burn.
Yeah, this that's the flavor text of Dismissive. And this card is one to keep because it's a 2-mana 2/2 that then gets turned into a removal spell later on.
This card's good. This card's very good. It's much better than some of the other 2-drops we talked about. I mean, if you've got the question between the choice between this and Lightning Mare, it's very easy. I mean, a 2-drop that is going to fix your draws a little bit and then eventually trade for a much bigger creature. I really like this card.
Yeah, so A+ for Dismissive.
Oh, we're going to do that. We're going to start doing that, are we?
Yes.
Here's our next card. It's Thud. It's a single red for a sorcery. To cast, you also have to sacrifice a creature, an additional cost to cast it, sacrifice a creature, and it deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. So this is just fling, right?
Yeah, it's fling at sorcery speed.
So it's not that bad, right? If you have Hazoret, you deal 5. If you have... Is there something that is unproportionally large?
Like, is there a creature that's disproportionately large for its stats?
Like ball
you know,
lightning
like
would be very good.
Yeah. No, if I have Hazoret, I would rather attack and deal 5.
Yeah, but when you kill your opponent, like it's if you can use those cards to have some creatures that are not used, like for example the horse, you can pump it, and if it can't attack, you can throw it for 5 or 6 or something.
I mean, I don't like this. I like this more with something like Hazoret, where you can recast it after you've sacrificed it, because then it's a recursive form of damage. But I mean, I'm not throwing away a creature that can still attack and block just unless it kills them on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the point. Usually that's the goal. You can also kill creatures with it. Like if your bad 2-drop doesn't do anything and they have something that creates value, for example, the new mage that draws 2 cards, you want to get rid of that. And
I don't like 2-for-1ing myself, and then if I throw away a bad 2-drop, I only deal 2 damage. I don't think I like this effect, in mono red at least. Maybe there's another deck that can make better use of it.
okay.
Rounding out our red cards, we've got 2 more. Gutter Snipe is back, originally printed in Return to Ravnica. It's 2 in a red for a 2/2 Goblin Shaman, and it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent, so it can only only goes after players. We don't have hugely instant and sorcery red deck or based red decks, but I don't know, is Gutter Snipe going to change that? Only playing 1 copy makes it kind of awkward.
I don't really like it, but maybe in another deck. Like, it's definitely not a fit for mono red in my opinion.
Yeah, problem is you have to build a commander deck around spells, and that seems kind of weird because you cannot fetch this. It doesn't kill planeswalkers anymore, so probably never good enough.
Our final red card, Spit Flame. It's an instant. It's 2 in a red for an instant that deals 4 damage to target creature. And whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay red. And if you do, return it from your graveyard to your hand. I'm going to really enjoy casting this. If I have a dragon, I can keep playing. For example, Nicol Bolas.
Yeah, if Nicol Bolas is your commander, this is great. Just kill something, then you cast Nicol Bolas for 5, bring this back. And 4 damage, as we said, is a nice number. Like 3 mana, 4 damage, instant is something you're wishing for most of the time.
Yep, like I could see this being played without the dragon synergy, and yeah, if you have a dragon, that's just additional upside.
I mean, you're playing Open Fire in your red deck at the moment, so this is just a clear upgrade from that.
No. Open Fire hits the face.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that's significant.
Like I probably would cast Open Fire, like want Open Fire or Spit Flame, but as soon as you play Spit Flame, you probably play Glorybringer, right? Like this is a given. So you will have at least 1 dragon and maybe 1 or 2 extra dragons, depending on what they print.
Yeah, but yeah, I can see this card making its way into many red decks.
Let's move on to blue now, powering through these cards here. We have more 2-drops. I noticed there's a common theme. A lot of the cards that have been selected for us to look at here are cheap ones, and Mystic Archaeologist is our first blue card here. It's a 2-drop, 1 and a blue for a human wizard. It's just a 2/1, but it's got an activated ability, 3 blue, no tap, just 3 blue, 5 mana, draw 2 cards.
So now, how big is the upside of getting to like cast a card draw spell every turn, or like threatening to do that, versus enabling the opponent's removal in a control deck, Toffel?
I think good enough. Like, you can play this on 7 and just draw 2. I like the ability to play it early to block and play it later to draw something. And you don't really have to really care if they remove it, because it's not that the cards are essential to your plan. It's just a nice upside.
So what you're saying is, even if it gets killed, you still trade it for an opponent's card?
Yeah, and time. Like, if you play it on 2, and as we said, usually control decks don't really have a lot of things to do on 2. Your opponent has to at least spend 1 or 2 mana to deal with it, and that's fine. Like, that's the road bump you want it to be early in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I can see that. I mean, I like it.
If you're casting this when you've got 7 mana as well, this just is it's insane, because it's going to be a 3-for-1. They have to answer it, otherwise you're already drawing 2 cards, and they have to already answer this 2-1, because otherwise you'll just untap and do it again. In the late game, I think this card, is just a fantastic option.
And there's always the possibility that it just doesn't get removed, and then it's completely insane. Once you draw cheap removal spells with it, you just kill everything and just finish the game.
All right, well, I like this as an inclusion in late game blue control decks. Let's move on to another potential inclusion in control decks. It's Anticipate. We've seen this card a couple of times already, but it's back in M19. 1 and a blue for an instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. This card is not exciting, but it's a nice little cantrip effect.
Yep, it's what they need, especially if your fixing is bad. You can look for your other colored lands if you play Chromium, if you play Nicobolas, and you find your either cheap removal spells or expensive cards.
Yeah, so we anticipate this seeing lots of play.
We anticipate.
That was the joke.
No,
Well, someone else who's actually also going to help you anticipate what's coming up next is Omen Speaker. Another reprint here, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human wizard, and when it comes into play, you scry 2. This is not Augur of Bolas, as I found out when it was first printed in Theros after Augur of Bolas rotated out. But this card has never been that impressive.
no. This is the trashy 2-drop of my kind.
Oh, really? This is the garbage that you like to play, Toffel.
Yeah, I mean, like, come on, what's to hate? You play something on 2 and you scry 2. Like, you even
that's
that is
something
it.
to
That's
Yeah.
that's what I hate. The fact that that's the end of that story.
If I remember correctly, even the control decks back then played Omen Speaker.
No.
In standard, I think so.
No, they didn't.
No,
They
the
definitely
blue-white
didn't.
control decks didn't play that.
They didn't play any creatures. They played Aetherling.
No. That was before, I think.
No, that was Theros standard, dude. That
Omen
was when we had
Speaker
mono.
was printed in Theros.
No,
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
we had
yeah,
mono blue,
but
mono black, and blue white.
was Aetherling in Theros?
Aetherling was printed in Return to Ravnica.
Yeah, that was before Theros, right?
Sure, but but Aetherling wasn't played before Theros.
Well, I guess it was played in the blue Devotion deck.
Yeah, exactly. Those started out playing it, but then they dropped it.
And they dropped it and started playing stuff like Tidebinder Mage.
Yeah, of course, because it's better.
Yeah. This card stinks. I'm not looking to play Omen Speaker at any point, really.
Yeah, we'll let Toffel do the scrying for us.
I don't know. Like, we're still at Brawl, and if people play Firebrand Archer, I feel like Omen Speaker is much better. Especially if you need to get your lands. You need to get your on-point remove spells for the situation. I just don't see how it's not good enough. Like,
Fair enough. If it blocks, it might be good enough.
Wait until Toffel finds out about Cloud Reader Sphinx.
what is that?
It's a 5-mana 3/4 flyer that scries 2.
Oh, no. No.
Oh, no, you're out on that card, are you?
No, because like this is a 2-drop that blocks and that sets you up for your mana. Like Scry on turn 2 is super important because it lets you keep so many more hands.
All right, okay. I mean, maybe playing this in Chromium, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not high on the card, but I'm not going to write it off just yet. If you think it's going to be part of the deck.
I'm saying that this will win a brawl. Like this will 5-0 brawl leagues and stuff.
You heard it here first, folks.
Okay, there it is. Toffel shooting from the hip. Let's move on to our next card. It's another Planeswalker here. Tezzeret, Artifice Master. 3 blue for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. +1. Create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. 0, draw a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. And -9, so a huge ultimate here. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, search your library for a permanent card, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. So this is another card that is hungry for a lot of artifacts, might pair well with Sai, the fellow we had a chat about before. Individually powerful effects, but still an expensive Planeswalker here.
Question is if it's good enough if it only draws 1 card.
The problem I have with this is that it rewards you for having some artifacts, but it doesn't reward you for going all out on the artifacts. So the deck it goes in is kind of a control deck that plays like some amount of artifacts. So you don't want to go too deep into the artifact theme. Like you don't want to play the unplayable ones because Tezzeret only rewards you for your third artifact. It doesn't reward you for having like 5 to 7 out. Like I would rather play Sai instead of this one.
No, but can you play both maybe? But then you have to play an artifact deck.
Well, of course, like if I play a Sai deck, I will probably play Tezzeret as well.
Would you play this with 0 artifacts?
Oof, tough question.
I mean,
I actually don't know.
It's a bit dreamy to assume like, I can make 3 tokens, then it draws 2 cards.
Yeah, like maybe you can play it in a control deck where you just say, all right, this is a 5-mana Planeswalker that will draw me 1 card a turn, and if I need it, I can generate chump blockers.
Reminds me of Jace Memory Adept, where in those low threat density control mirrors, it was very good. But I think in Brawl there's always enough going on that a Planeswalker like this probably isn't going to stick around for long enough to justify itself.
It actually reminds me a lot more of Jay's Unravel of Secrets.
No,
Sure.
but that one didn't draw cards.
What?
Yeah, it went upstairs and drew a card.
Oh, yes. I thought it was Jace the Living Guild Pact.
No, that card did absolutely stone cold nothing, yes.
I think it might be good enough on its own, but it's questionable. If you play against a control deck, playing this, plussing all the time, just creating a threat is super nice, right? Maybe there's a world, maybe not.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Tezzeret Master Artificer. No, that's not what it's called. Tezzeret Artifice Master. I was really close. I just got the words in the wrong order there. Moving on now to white cards, and again, we've got another 2-drop here. It's Remorseful Cleric. This one's already got a bit of press for what it can do. 1 and a white for a Spirit Cleric. It's a flying 2/1, so that's a pretty good rate already. And you can sacrifice it to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. How much utility is this ability going to have in Brawl?
Not a lot.
Well, a lot. You can always use it.
Yes, you can always use it, but it's not going to have an impact that often. What's really impactful is a 2-mana 2/1 flyer.
Is that so?
Yes. In white aggressive decks, I think this will always be included just as a 2-mana 2/1 flyer. Having evasion is nice if you want to beat down. Having 2 power is nice if you want to beat down. I just love this card.
There are very few cards that are, need to be exiled. There's Grounger, there's Earthshaker Kenra. There are a few new cards that care about the graveyard, but in general, this ability is not worth just putting it into your deck, right?
So you only play this if you're wanting a 2/1 flyer for 2.
Indeed.
Or Spirit.
Well, if you want a 2/1 flyer for 2, can I interest you in a 1/2 flyer for 1? Rustwing Falcon is exactly that. That's all it says. It's just a 1-mana 1/2 bird with flying. And that's it. That's all she wrote.
All right, let me tell you about all the upsides this has.
Okay.
We just discussed how good a 2-mana 2/1 flyer is for decks that want it. This card has the same keyword, and it has 1 more toughness.
Well, it has 1 less power.
And it costs 1 less mana as well. Yeah.
Yes. So obviously,
can sacrifice.
Even better, you can't accidentally click on this card and sacrifice it when you don't mean to. It has the same total power and toughness. It costs half the mana. Yeah, this card is just better than the cleric. So this card must be fantastic.
In the go wide aggressive decks I've built so far, I've always included Hope of Girapool, and I will include this Rustwing Falcon. Since it's a straight upgrade, basically,
Yeah.
So we're looking at cards like we're looking at decks like Huatli Radiant Champion. You're going to include this guy, huh?
Exactly. Also, if your Lyra deck, the mono white one, you could also play this. If your goal is to go wide by as much as possible, you will play this.
You can also go white.
Yeah, you go wide and you go white as much as possible.
There's also this concept that your cards are not worth as much because you have a commander. So, yeah, it's tough. I don't like it, but it's probably good enough.
Yeah, good old Rustwing will carry you there.
Well, I maybe, how strong is that bird?
Not a particularly inspiring name, Rustwing, I want Strongwing Falcon or something if I'm going to be carried somewhere by it.
No, it's about the color.
Ah, I see. So it doesn't actually, the wings don't actually rust.
No, they're not mechanically and rusted. No.
Ah, okay.
Well, that's good. I'm glad because it'd be hard to fly with metal wings, let alone rusty metal wings.
That's what they said about airplanes at first.
Yeah, and how do they go? Right. They still fly. Most of the time.
Checkmate.
Most of the time, yeah. Okay, well, you got me. There we go. Let's move on to our next card. It's Cleansing Nova. 3 white for a sorcery, and you can choose 1. Destroy all creatures or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. This card is it just amazing? It seems really good, right?
I've already made some discussions and we realized it's much worse than Fumigate in Standard. I'd imagine it's not that much different in Brawl. The question is, do you still would add it? Because you're not adding some Wrath effects that are in the format, right?
But it's a Wrath effect that is just not going to be dead against opposing control decks when you can blow up their seal away and their cast out.
Yes, but I think that's a lower upside than gaining life. It's obviously relevant in different matchups, but I think...
Just play both.
Yes, that's what I also would do. I think I would play Fumigate over this, but since we can't play up to 4 Fumigate, we will just play Cleansing Nova.
I mean, clearly in a Brawl deck, your opponents will play, the mono-red deck, the white deck, Huatli, mono-green, whatever, will play their creatures, right?
Yeah, sweepers, just blow those strategies out by a lot.
That's good. Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned, Riley, it's also good against control, blowing up value artifacts or enchantments.
Maybe it's not good, but it's definitely, it has more utility. I mean, you're going to get more out of it than you would a Fumigate. So I like its flexibility. Our next card is actually another more expensive card. It's a 4-drop, Leonin War Leader, 2 white for a cat soldier. It's a 4/4, and when it attacks, create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink that are also tapped and attacking. So it's a 4-drop that attacks for 6. And I mean, a white 4-mana 4/4 is really no joke.
Yeah, there's a card in history that was super good, and that's kind of comparable to that, which is Hero of Bladehold.
Yeah, and this card seems, I mean, it's not obviously, it's hard to say that it's better, but this is on par with one of, a really, really good white weenie top end card here.
It also goes wide. Jamin should love it.
Yeah, I love it. I will include this in most of my white decks. If not all of them.
Also, the creatures have lifelink, which is nice. So
yeah, makes racing hard. It also has
and they're
4
free,
toughness.
right? Like this is the thing. You can just attack into your opponent's board, and even if they eat up the 1/1s, like they're not dying for nothing. And I don't know, dude. This card seems very powerful.
It is.
Yeah, I love it. It also has an easy direction, right? You turn it sideways, and it makes creatures. It's not complicated to use it. It's not difficult to put into your deck. You just use it anyway.
Well, another card that I think is also going to be extremely powerful is one of the marquee white mythics here from M19. It's Resplendent Angel. It's a 3-mana 3/3 flying, 1 white for an angel. And at the beginning of each end step, if you gain 5 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. And it has more text and activated ability, 3 white, so 6 mana total until end of turn. Resplendent Angel gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink. So in other words, once you've got some mana to dump into it, Resplendent Angel fulfills its own criteria for making angels. But every part of this card, I think, is just really strong.
Well, my question would be, usually, is this good enough if you play it on its own? Because I don't think you can expect life gain or theme in Brawl. There's no commander that really supports it. There's no density of cards that make this reliably triggered. But is it good enough with the ability it has? And I guess, is it good enough as a 3-mana 3/3 flyer? And I already know what Jamin is going to say. Okay, wait. If you tell me now that a 3-mana 3/3 flyer is not good enough, I don't believe anything you will say anymore.
Like, this dies to Lightning Strike.
Everything lies to...
So does Rustwing Falcon. You're still in love with that
but
card.
you spent 1 mana on that Falcon, where you spent 3 mana on this Angel. Like, generating a free 4/4 Angel is super powerful, and you don't have to do that a lot for this to be worth it. But and I can also see like a 3-power flyer for 3 mana being really powerful. So this will probably be played a lot by me.
This card's really good. It's like, it's at or above rate as a 3-mana 3/3 flyer. And then in your late game, I mean, if you've got something like a Huatli and that is not doing anything to continue to like really impact the board, then you just get in for 5 every turn. This card's great.
Yeah, I can see this not being played. Like, it's so good. It's good if you draw it late. It's a bit annoying that it costs 6 to activate. You sometimes will just fool yourself in doing it. But, like, if you have nothing to do, why not, right? This is stable.
Yeah, I guess, like, I talked about how a 2-mana 2/1 is reach if it deals 2 damage to the opponent. So I guess this has to be good enough.
Hey, man, we have funny sides on cards, right? Like, you go from the bottom and easily convincible by bad cards, and I go from the top and it's like, oh, this looks good, I want to play this.
Yeah.
It's nice. We all meet in the middle by the end of it.
We all meet in the middle.
Let's move on now to our next card. It's a 3-drop this time, Militia Bugler. It's a 2 and a white for a 2/3 human soldier. It has vigilance, which the helpful reminder text says attacking doesn't cause this creature to tap. I love core set reminder text. It's always
they just
it's
give
always
you that
a joy.
nostalgia. When I first started playing, like, I actually needed that text, and now they bring it back, and you get to, I don't know, it's a bit nostalgic.
I like it a lot. It has another ability. We're not just leaving it there. When Militia Bugler enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So This card, obviously, Jamin, is going to support any attempt you're making to go wide. It's a decent inclusion in the Huatli deck, but I mean, a 3-mana 2/3, even if it does replace itself, is this card all that good?
It's a 3-mana 2/3 that replaces itself.
Yeah, it doesn't always replace itself, though. I mean, you're only looking at the top 4 cards of your library. Well, that's not very many.
It basically never replaces itself for me because I'll never hit, and it will always replace itself for Toffel. But on average, that's 50% of
half the time. Yeah, okay, sure. You draw half a card off it.
No, I think if you obviously you need to build your deck around this, or rather you put this into decks that support its ability. But if it does hit, I think this is just really, really good of a card because it refuels your hand while putting a relevant body onto the board.
Our second last white card is Revitalize. It's 1 and a white for an instant. It says you gain 3 life, draw a card. It's pretty simple. Doesn't do a whole lot. Doesn't take up too much of a spot in your deck, seeing as it replaces itself. But I don't know, is this really going to get the nod?
I think it might be just good enough. I mean, we have the constant issue of you cannot do a lot on turn 2. So this is a nice, refreshing way to...
so refreshing.
Yeah, to do stuff.
Look at the guy. He's loving this.
Yeah,
he's having a great time.
The artwork
is bottle
great.
Of Gatorade.
Your opponents play Navigators and we play Revitalize. So I think we are ahead in this transaction.
So the obvious card to compare this to is Renewed Faith.
Why? No, I'm kidding.
You got me there.
I mean, it makes 3 life, not 2. So why would you compare it?
Yeah, and maybe you will either play both of them or you will play none of them, and
no,
we'll find out.
I'm not sure.
What, you actually think the 1 life difference is?
Yeah, I mean it's 50% more life, right?
Wow, all right.
And Renewed Faith is very rarely being hard cast. This is an option you don't really have to take. You don't really want to take. I mean, but it's an option nevertheless, sure. But this also just gives you 1 more life to beginning when you want to cycle it. And I think a lot of the games actually might go differently at the point where you cycle it for free in the beginning, say, I have nothing to do, and you have 1 life more.
All right.
It's hard to say, this is definitely the difference that will be game-changing, as in you play one but not the other. But I like this a bit more, and... if you play a Teferi deck and you need some cards to fill your slots, I think this is perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's why we have these discussions, because for me it would have been a no-brainer. These cards are just equal, in my mind, but well, good on you for pointing that out. Also, I want to mention the flavor text, because this card just has it all. A potion is no substitute for a skilled surgeon, but it will hold your bits in. It's he's just chilling there, you can see him, he's ducked behind a wall to not be attacked, having his potion, just all comes together. The artwork, the effect, the flavor text.
And that's the flavor of magic.
Very good. Our last wild card. Hang on. Whoa. How is this our last wild card? Ajani, adversary of tyrants. We got a plan. Okay, we'll have to come back to this. Two white for a planeswalker with 4 loyalty. That's an Ajani planeswalker. +1, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each of up to 2 target creatures. -2, return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And -7, you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your end step, create 3 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. This to me is the most... We were talking before about generically powerful planeswalkers. This is that for me out of all of the 5/1s from M19. But I'm still not that excited about it.
And even this one isn't super generic. It pumps up your board a bit. It doesn't strike me as super powerful.
Well, it needs creatures and 2 drops, which both are basically in your deck once you play it. This is as generic as it gets, right? This feels really a Johnny. I would say.
Yeah, most all the mono white Ajanis have been super boring, and I guess this one is just sort of following in that proud tradition.
Why? I looked at this card and said, okay, this is clearly not a good commander because it's just bad in mono white. You would never play it. And then I said, it's fine. Maybe you can get a J-spec, right? The O2.
Yeah.
Which seems like, this is good to get like a card pack that's really good. And then I realized, well, Jace is not even like a thing we're
Jace
talking
is
about.
Not in the format, and it's not in white, and wow.
Yeah, and then if you had a few cards that are very synergistic with getting them back, I mean, it could be good. But this is roughly just making the board bigger and getting something back.
Mediocre card, I'm already bored about discussing it, and I want to move on to the real, actual powerhouse white 4-drop that has been left off this list very conspicuously, because Valiant Knight is here to take some names. I tell you what, there's dragons out there to slay, and she's going to do it. Valiant Knight, 3 and a white for a 3/4. Other knights you control get +1/+1, and for 5 mana, 3 white, knights you control gain double strike until end of turn. Ariel Knight of Windgrace is a sleeping titan. This deck is going to overwhelm Brawl sooner rather than later, and Valiant Knight is a huge part of that.
Okay, wait, can I say something?
I mean, you just did, but sure, if you want to say another thing.
No.
Okay, he didn't want to say anything.
Let me, Riley, this is like people call it dream center, but actually it's not that far away, but just close your eyes, right?
Okay.
Imagine this. You play a History of Benalia on turn 3.
I'm loving it already.
Yeah.
I love this story.
Yeah. You play this on turn 4.
Okay, I'm not playing Ariel, sure, but okay,
No,
yeah.
you play this, right?
All right,
then
play
on
this.
turn 5, this is a 5 power creature, right? Because it's a knight.
Yeah, it's a 5/5.
Your other creatures are 5/5.
They're 5/4s, yes.
Yeah, all of them have double strike.
Okay.
So even if your opponent can kill or block one creature, they're still dead.
Oh my goodness, we did it.
Yes.
We've broken it.
We did it.
It's over.
Ariel Knight of Windgrace coming to a 5/0 league near you.
Yeah,
This
and
is fantastic.
This doesn't include a 2-drop knight. This doesn't include any other cards. Like, this is...
Yeah, Dauntless Bodyguard on 1. Don't even worry about
It
it.
doesn't include any other cards, like removal from the opponent.
No, but...
All right, Yamin. Whatever.
No,
I don't
you
need-
can
I
play
don't
your
need negativity in here, buddy.
Rust, Wing, Tail, Hawks, whatever they are.
Yeah, I
they
played
can-
that
they
on
can
turn 1.
Jump in, and then they can jump in front of my 5/4 double striking knight.
Yeah, like, I see this.
Well, I can see another feature match happening, but
I love this card. It's a slam dunk included. So as soon as I saw it was had been previewed, I'm like, yeah, well, of course. I mean, jokes aside, the Ariel deck, or just any white creature deck, has access to a lot of +1/+1 effects. There's Banalish Marshal, there's Radiant Destiny, and now there's this guy as well. I mean, I don't know.
Like,
the deck's still bad, but I'm
How
going to have
isn't
so
it
much fun with
broken
this
yet?
card.
Do you know the Prosperous Bloom story? No, it's a combo deck from earlier. That was the first combo deck where they had like, you have to, you can discard your hands for mana, then you can sacrifice your lands for mana, and then you can get your lands back and all this stuff. It was like the first combo deck, and who built it was so convinced that the designers built the deck themselves before like printing the cards and spread the cards over the block to it being a deck, right?
Oh, right. Okay. So they already had that deck in mind, but they spread it out across several sets.
Yeah, they built a deck and then they just designed it in overcrest sets, and then people
And that's
were
what's
fine.
happening
And that's
here
like
with,
clearly
yeah.
this is not an accident. Like,
yeah, this is a setup.
Yeah. They couldn't put all of the good cards in one set, so the Night Tribe is slowly coming together. It's a couple of late arrivals to the family reunion, but that Ariel Knight of Windgrace, it's, as I say, coming to a 5/0 league near you, my friends. Get ready.
all right, end of Dreamland.
Let's move on now to green, and we're going to kick things off with a 2-drop in green, Thorn Lieutenant.
I've heard this is very good for Dredge.
Oh dear, for those of you who missed Yamin's tweet about this card, so one of our favourite pastimes, this isn't something we talk about publicly because it's a little bit nasty, but one of our favourite pastimes is to look at some of the comments that people make on cards on mythicspoiler.com when the cards are first previewed, and some people have very inventive evaluations of new cards that are coming out, some very optimistic evaluations certainly, and then some just real head scratches.
Just imagine them being like you in Knights.
Yeah, it's the
But
same.
I mean,
really.
at least okay. But I mean, I talk at least a little bit of sense. Like I'm at least coherent with what I'm saying, because there was one punter who said the Thorn Lieutenant, which is a 2-mana 2/3, and it says whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, create that an opponent controls, create a 1/1 elf, and then you can pay 6 mana to give it +4/+4. Someone said that this would be good in Dredge.
Yeah, I actually found the solution.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Because Yamin was on some real, Rain Man sort of calculation type stuff to get to get it done.
Which was
he couldn't find it.
glorious, like, it was
So
great.
Toffel, lay it out for us. What does this card do?
Yeah, like it is hard to see, and you have to be a real genius for it, right? Like this is, it's not easy, and once you see it, it's hard to overlook. But getting there is kind of, and I'm actually very surprised you didn't get there, because you both of you of all people should be the first to get there, because it's started at some other commentary in Mythic Spoiler, and somebody said like, wow, this is a good toy for Dredge. And then people argued like, wow, this is so irrelevant, doesn't do anything. And then people started to post under every single card, well, I guess Dredge got a new toy. And the first time we realized it was when this card was printed, because then Jamin made it obvious. But if you look at the cards that are being printed, every card of this has this comment eventually.
Oh, and this was just the first time we noticed
Yes,
it.
and
it's just a big ongoing joke.
Where did it start?
well, I don't know. Like, is there a...
I've never seen that before, and I look at these comments pretty happily.
it must have been something, I think, in M19. I'm pretty sure. Or maybe the last set.
It has to have been very recent.
Yeah.
No, yeah, okay. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, it looks like Dredge did get a new toy. Obviously, there's not a Dredge deck in Brawl, so what's this 2/3 going to do in Brawl?
Well, if it becomes the target of a spell... it's okay.
We had all this big discussion, and it's fine. It's okay.
It's fine. Like, it's a 2-drop you will play, because it's hard to get rid of. It's good late, and...
It has good stats.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is no Sylvan Advocate, right? Advocate was really, really good. So...
Yeah, but Sylvan Advocate was just busted.
I can see this not being good enough, because it's just attacks for 2 a lot of the time, and you don't, as with the Angel, want to spend 6 mana if you're not sure enough that this is going to hit. Your opponent...
But the thing with the Angel is, if you invest that 6 mana and you get in there, you're gaining 5 life and you're getting a payoff. Here, you're just attacking for 6, and it doesn't... I mean, that doesn't do all that much.
Definitely,
I don't like it.
Definitely. Like, the thing is that committing your 6 mana is the point, not the outcome. Like, if I know my 6 mana go through and I can attack with it, I'm sure the Angel does get a better payoff, but it still doesn't make the decision easier.
This card stinks. No, it doesn't. It smells very much. It needs a shower. It just isn't that great.
I will play
it. Okay, well, of course you will. You mean you love that.
I think
this card isn't even that bad. It's just not. It's just like.
No, here's what's going to happen. Jamin will play it, and we will realize it's not good enough, and then we will not play it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see at some point.
Toffel, you were looking for cards to pair with Thud before. You were looking for low-cost, high toughness creatures. Well, I got one for you here. How about Gigantosaurus? It costs green for a dinosaur. It's a 10/10.
No. It costs green.
That's what I said.
I think you said green.
No.
It costs green.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It costs 5 green.
No,
it's not a 6-drop. It costs green.
I think that's pretty obvious.
Well, yeah, the card shows 5 green mana symbols.
Yeah, 5 green mana symbols.
Can we just say it costs GGGGG?
Yeah, it's a really, really good game.
Yeah. Okay.
It costs 10/10, and it has a bunch of flavor text.
That is it.
Costs 10/10. I love this.
It's a 10/10, and it has a bunch of flavor text. That's it.
Well, what's the flavor text? Is it good?
Each tooth is the length of a horse, and new ones grow in every 16 days. Let's get a closer look.
How does she know? That's a very specific piece of knowledge for Vivian Reed to have. How does she know it's every 16 days exactly? And do new ones grow in regardless of whether the Gigantosaurus loses old ones as well?
Yeah, like if you just let it sit there for 160 days, it's...
Is it going to have a mouth like a porcupine?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that like a shark thing?
I mean, sharks continue to grow teeth, but they lose them all the time as well.
Yeah, but who says they don't lose this?
The Gigantosaurus?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. But I mean, she doesn't address that in a brief summary there.
Also, how long has she been following this dinosaur to know that it's every 16 days? Like, it must be least 32 days.
And this is the thing as well. She seems to have a very specific knowledge of this dinosaur, but then is also wanting to get a closer look. That implies that she hasn't had a closer look already. I don't trust the analysis of Vivian Reed just now. She seems to be making a lot of generalizations that aren't backed up with cold hard fact.
Yeah, I think she's a bad scientist.
She doesn't say, I mean, where are her sources? There's no footnotes on the card.
Yeah.
There's no citations or references.
Yeah, and what happened? Like, maybe it can only be 15 days or something?
Yeah, it could be 15, could be 17. Who knows?
You know, unless she followed this dinosaur for like 160 days.
So how old does this dinosaur get, right?
How old?
Yeah, like on average year, like 40 years or something?
Oh, it must get older. Like, how do you die if you're that huge?
Okay, let's say assume how many years did it live?
100.
I have no idea.
Just say a number, right? Just guess something.
100.
Let's say, okay, fine, 100, but I don't think that's true, but 100.
Okay, so if you live for 100 years, right, you have 36,500 days. So if you divide that by 16, it should have 2,200 teeth at the end of it live. I don't think this is true.
Do you know which card this actually pairs? If we can actually sort of get on with talking about this more seriously.
Really?
Do you know which card this actually? We talked about its interaction with Thud. Do you know which card I just figured out now, which it really works well with?
Nalea.
Tooth Collector.
Oh, great!
Yeah, strong.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming. I didn't
Actually,
know
you
it
did?
was Tooth Collector, but
No, that's good. That's good.
yeah.
Is this card any good? We're playing this in what?
like
Galta?
we talked about how triple white cards are like hard to cast, or like Chain Whirler is hard to cast. You can't play its second color if you're playing Gigantosaurus. Like, you are going to play mono green, but I think in mono green this is good.
Is it?
I mean, it's never connecting.
Well, yeah, it's like Galta, right? If it's connecting, it's over. But Galta is trample.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I think
I mean,
this feels like a win more card, right?
I think you still play it though. I think it's still a respectable enough threat. It demands an answer, and also it just makes you Galta instantly cost 2 mana. I don't know. I think it's fine.
But at which point, like, where do you not cast Galta for the castable amount at 5? If they have removal spell for
Yes,
everything?
we have to compare it to Gear Hulk and stuff, and Gear Hulk is an 8/8. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. More research required for Gigantosaurus, and not just about whether its playability in Brawl. We do need to, do further investigation into that dental situation of this dinosaur. We will see. Got another spicy reprint here from, when was this first printed? M13, M14? It's Reclamation Sage, 2 and a green for a 2/1 Elf Shaman, and when it enters the battlefield, you get a Naturalize. You can destroy an artifact or an enchantment. This card's really good, traditionally, and with the number of artifacts and enchantments that see a fair bit of play in Brawl, I like this card.
Completely agreed.
There are always artifacts or enchantments that you need to get rid of. This is worst case a bad creature, best case a nice 2-for-1 great card. Is there an option to look for it? Like some tutor effects?
I don't think so. In recent times, all the tutor effects they print only look at the top X cards of your library.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it with a Militia Bugler.
Yeah. I mean, like, those were the strengths of those cards, right? If you have a effect that lets you choose to get it, but sometimes you don't want it, you can ignore it, then it's when it gets really powerful. But most of the time...
There's no Court of Calling in Brawl.
Yeah, most of the time your opponent will have something over the course of the game. I'm not sure. Does the red deck play artifacts or enchantments? I'm not sure. I don't think so.
There's Bomat Courier, but apart from that, there's not a lot.
You should still play this card. Like, if you're playing green, you should strongly look at playing this card.
Definitely.
Let's move on now to our next card, Dryad Green Seeker. It's a 1 and a green for a Dryad, a 1/3. And you can tap it. It says, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, reveal it and put it into your hand. Or you may reveal it, put it into your hand. This card seems pretty medium. I mean, in what situations are we wanting an effect like this?
I like the effect as a pseudo card draw. Like, whenever you use this and your top card is a land, you effectively didn't draw that land. So in the green decks, it gives you a lot more reach or a lot more playability because you draw on average less lands. There are some effects with shuffling, like you can look at the top card. If you don't want it, you can shuffle. I don't think it's super relevant in Brawl, but I think this is very underrated. Like, it can block. It's like, I think this is very comparable to Omen Speaker as an effect, only that this is stronger since it can actually draw the cards.
So I actually came to that rating or like that evaluation from the other side. I thought, like, wow, this is busted because it draws your card half of the time. Like, how often do you get 2 mana 1/3, draw half a card if you tap it? Now, I don't really see lots of situations where you want this, because on turn 2, your green deck would rather like get some mana into play, like play a mana dork, or play a creature that can attack.
Yeah, I like this is probably nothing for an Huatli deck, right? This is not something that gives you thrust for the board. But if you end up playing a deck that wants to go far, like for example, what is the 3-color big dino?
Muldrotha?
No, the dino.
Zakama?
Yeah, the one that untaps lands?
Zaka.
Yeah, if you want to play her, I think this is great.
It doesn't ramp you, though.
No, but it gives you the lands to play.
Oftentimes it's just about being fast with Zakama, because otherwise you die to mono red.
Yeah, but you're not doing anything else on turn 2 anyway. It's not that you ramp.
Of course you do. You have like Servant of the Conduit and Naga Vitalist and all of those.
Yeah, you have some creatures, but you can also play them later. Like, I see that this is not premium, but it might be just good enough. And if you play like Muldrotha, that's true. This could be cool.
Yeah, like I guess you can include it in mid-range decks, but I would rather play a Mana Dork on turn 2 if I can.
I've also seen Tatyova decks being played.
Ooh, in Tatyova decks, this is probably fairly good, right? Because like drawing lands is actually kind of nice.
So I think there's a future, and I really love it. Like you can just tap it and sometimes draw a card.
Yeah, it does read great, right? Like tap, draw a card.
Our next card here, Goreclaw, the Terror of Kal Sisma. It's a 3 and a green for a 4/3 legendary creature, bear. It says, creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast, and whenever it attacks, each creature you control with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. Pretty clear direction for this card. Obviously, you want to build around it with high power creatures, but I don't know. This doesn't really. I mean, you need to cast this before you get the discount on your big creatures. I don't know what you're doing in turns 1, 2, and 3 before this comes out, and even then, this card just doesn't do enough for me to make me want to build a deck around it or with it or anything really.
I was wondering if this is just an include in the Galta decks, because I don't remember the 4-drops being super premium, and when you play this and then you can play 2 other cards maybe next turn or another card and Galta, it's already worth it. And trample is huge. Like if your big creatures get trample, that's a good synergy.
Yeah, granting big creatures trample is very good. Yeah, this costing 4 is like exactly the awkward spot, but going Lanoa Elf into this on turn 2 would be ridiculous, so it has to cost 4. I think this one needs some playtime to see how good it actually is.
The problem is that you cannot really cast something for 2 reduced that is costing 7, right? You're not putting 7 drops in the deck. Maybe it's a good card also in Zakama because it ramps for 2, effectively.
Yeah, it's basically like ramping for 2.
So if you play a Mana Dork on 2, and then you play this on 3, then you play another ramp on 4, you can cast her on 5. That's good.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, if you've got lots of other stuff like, well, I mean, Steel Leaf Champion obviously has more than 5 power. Gigantosaurus also has more than 5 power. And what else is there?
Yeah, well done, Riley. Well done.
Well,
Thank you very
Hazoret.
much. Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, Zahid, Jin of the Lamp as well.
Nylea? No, what is the card here? The green god.
Nylea, God of the Hunt.
No, the extra one you can. Ronus.
Oh, Ronus the Indomitable.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, Ronus is an
wow.
actual synergy.
Yeah, for 1 mana. Wow, that's actually pretty good.
Like, yeah. Gigantosaurus doesn't get reduced, if you haven't noticed, Toffel.
I didn't say that.
I know, but he thought that you missed the joke.
No.
It wasn't a great joke, really. I mean, it really was pretty low. I'm not super proud. I'm not writing a letter to Mum to tell her about this great joke that I made on my Tin Pot podcast or anything.
Are you wring letters to my mom at all?
Not to your mum, mate. No, okay. I don't write her letters.
Because she's really lonely and she would wish like something.
Oh my god.
Oh dear. Okay, let's finish off our green cards here with Runic Armasaur. 1 green for a 2/5. I like that big old butt there. And whenever
You can't deny that.
No, I'm not in any position to deny that whatsoever. And whenever opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card. It's a dinosaur. This card is weird. I don't know how many cards you're going to draw off it. Probably 0 because opponents won't activate abilities. But how important is it from preventing them from activating those abilities?
Yeah, I mean, there are some lands. All of the flip cards like Search for Counter, get lands, like become lands, and then you draw something out of those. Arc of Garaska, Scavenging Grounds. It's very, as you said, fringy, right? It's you hope
They're just not going to activate those abilities when you've got this guy.
which is fine. Like if they have an Arc of Garaska and they don't want to use it, even though they would, you win something. It's the question is like it's like throwing a lot of stuff against the wall and see what sticks, because eventually you will find something that they don't want.
What kind of stuff, Toffel? What kind of stuff are you throwing at the wall
Like
there?
lands and creatures abilities.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I have a bit of an issue to find creature abilities that are used that often. But for example, Bloodlust Insider would be one. The one that gives haste.
Yeah. This card
Has a
is
red
kind
ability.
of weird in that the 2/5 body is very good against aggro, but the ability is more aimed against control, right?
Yeah, I see that.
It's so
Well, does that
awkward.
just mean that it's a nice flexible card that should be included in green decks as a result?
Well, if both of them are not good enough, it's not flexible. It's just bad.
For me, the question becomes, is a 2/5 body a good enough blocker against aggro decks? And it might just be the case.
Definitely, yes.
Well then, play this in your mid-range decks and block some red attackers.
Yeah, it can back up Thrashing Brontodon as another high toughness, difficult to deal with blocker. Yeah, sure. All right, well, that's it's not a bad bit of utility for that card. That finishes off the green cards. We've got a couple of black cards here to get across as well. I don't think this is going to take us too long, because there are only 4 that we want to talk about. And the first 2 come back to what we were talking about with Liliana. The first one, Graveyard Marshal, black for a 3/2 zombie soldier, and you can pay 2 and a black and exile a creature card from your graveyard and create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. Notably, you don't have to tap the Marshal to do this. So this is a nice aggressive creature and certainly feeds into zombie synergies. But again, I think a Brawl deck wanting a zombie deck in Brawl is just lacking that critical mass of creatures.
But that's the good part of this card, right? You don't need zombies. It's just good. So if you draw this on turn 5 or 8, there's a high likelihood that you can activate it right away, and that's something very good. Like you're putting a bit of effort in playing the card later, because, well, it's not that good once you draw it, but it has an effect that can take over the game on its own.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of weird because those effects are a mana sink in the late game, and in Brawl, your mana sink in the late game is usually your commander itself.
Yeah, I got you.
So that's really awkward, but like it's a decent body, a 2-mana 3/2 coupled with an ability that can take over a late game. You know, like if you and your opponent like pass the turns twice in a row, this will take over the game. But then why isn't anyone casting their commander?
Yeah,
I don't love this card.
Like the only advantage is that it's kind of sliceable, right?
Yeah, you can always fit an activation into a turn.
Yeah, but you're right. I think like you will play it nevertheless in a black focus deck. Black is kind of hard to play early. It needs to be very centered on black. But right now they don't exist, right?
No, not really. But yeah,
maybe
like any deck that can cast this on turn 2 and is looking for 3/2 to attack with will obviously include this. And then like creating zombie tokens late is just a nice free upside.
No.
I don't see this being a backbone of like mid-range decks.
Yep, agreed.
So this card, will be obviously very good in a zombie deck, but as you're saying, can fit into non-zombie decks as well, just as a little repeatable value engine.
I think this card might be like, we don't like it, and we don't like it for the reasons Jamin said. But I think this might be a card that is actually very trappy. That people look at it and it's like, oh, it's a decent 2-drop. It does something late, but it might be just too weak for a deck because of all the reasons we said. So when you listen to us, right, you would be careful now, and I think people will overplay this card.
I guess one thing that's important to remember is that you don't have to play it in a zombie deck. It is obviously much better in a devoted zombie deck, but as a little value engine, if it's going to be good, it can just slot into more or less any heavy black deck and just start churning out those 2/2s at a later point in the game. That's in stark contrast to our next card, which is only essentially going to be any good in a zombie deck, which is Death Baron. 1 black for a 2/2 zombie wizard. Skeletons you control and other zombies you control get +1/+1 and have death touch.
Yeah, I'd like to intervene there. It's not only good in zombie decks,
Yeah. Like
and that's pretty obvious.
Sorry. Yeah.
Your statement was just pretty much straight up false, because this will be exceptionally good in skeleton decks.
In skeleton aggro? Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. All right. I beg for the pardon of all of the devoted skeleton tribal wizards around the world. I apologize.
So unfortunately, this will not be very good in any other deck, and
or any deck at all, as we figured out
Yeah.
that skeleton and zombies are nothing that has a lot of support.
Again, man. Golgari. Wait till Golgari comes around and return to Ravnica, and we will have skeletons and zombies coming out of our asses. It'll be fantastic, and then this card will truly shine.
That sounds really horrible.
Yeah, I don't really want to get too far into that, actually. No, we can leave that one alone. Let's move on now. Our second to last card is Murder. 1 black for an instant. Destroy target creature. About as clean as removal spells come. We've seen this card before. I'm sure we'll see it again. Is it set to play a role in Brawl?
It's probably an auto-include, right?
yes, it adds to the great suit of black removal spells that we already have with Raska's Contempt, Never to Return, Cast Down, Fatal Push. But yeah, this is just a clean answer to creatures that you want to play.
All right, if you're playing black, run it. It's a good card. It'll deal with the problems that you've got. Our very final card, Izareth the Awakener. 1 black for a legendary creature, human wizard, a 3/3. Has Death Touch, and it says whenever Izareth the Awakener attacks, you may pay X. When you do, return target creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield with a corpse counter on it. And if that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. So the corpse counter does nothing except remind you that it should be exiled. So there's no corpse counter synergy here. But a repeatable reanimation effect seems pretty good. It's just, I mean, how often are you connecting with this 3/3 even though it has Death Touch?
Sometimes. There's
Sorry, I don't mean connect. How often is this 3/3 attacking with impunity and not just immediately dying?
Well, that's the point. You don't need impunity, right? You just need once and then it's fine. You're playing black, so the road is clear most of the time, or you can make it clear. You can choose when to attack. You need something in
But
it.
then you don't have. If you're spending mana on removal spells, you don't have mana then to.
You can you can fatal push or murder. You don't have to attack on turn 4. You also have to have a creature in your graveyard. So, it also blocks really well. It has Death Touch, so it's good against the small and the big creatures. There's an issue about those abilities, which are sometimes a bit confusing. The ability has 2 stages, right? You're targeting the card in your graveyard when you attack. But you don't pay right away. You only play when the ability is resolving. So, when your opponent has a scavenger grounds, you will target the creature, and then they have to decide if they want to exile or not. If they don't choose to, then you can pay. But once you pay, they cannot decide to exile it.
But that's just good for our card.
Yeah, what you're saying here, Toffel, is that you can't waste your mana, essentially.
Exactly, which might be an issue, as we said, with attacking, like with the ability. You pump the angel, it gets removed, you wasted your mana. This is not one of those cases. Like, if you have a very expensive target in your graveyard and you feel like, I don't want to spend all the mana and then nothing happens, well, either something happens and you get it back, or you don't spend your mana.
Okay, that's a nice little rules point to remember here. But is this card going to be? I mean, it's difficult to cast. It has double black, and the reward, I guess, is there if you can pull it off. But I don't know. I'm not super. It reminds me of Goreclaw. It seems like a lot of hoops to jump through for not a huge payoff.
I think this is good enough. You have a lot of creatures in your deck already that are very valuable to get back. You have a Siphoner, which is a cool draw engine. You have Ravenous Chupacabra, which is really, really good because, well, then you destroy the blocker. You have maybe Champion of Wits and all the stuff. Like, I think the creatures getting back part is not the issue. Attacking might be bad, but then you trade and get something back.
Yeah, I don't really like. That's so great about this card. This card can attack into anything, whereas other cards that
Nope.
Imagine it can't attack into.
There's one very, very important card that it cannot attack into.
Ensnaring Bridge? Moat?
No, it's our favorite card of today's. It's a bit more relevant in Standard, but it will happen in Brawl. It's Goblin Chain Wallet.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. like this card looks great, and it's actually quite horrible if you think about it at this point. But that doesn't happen as much in Brawl, so like it's true.
Yeah, like don't let Goblin Chain Whirler
Ruin
scare
your
you
day.
off of casting Izareth, because it can attack into most other creatures while still getting value. You know, many of those cards that have to attack to do something often suffer of like your opponent just having a bigger blocker. Well, this one doesn't really.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a good removal for like Galta. Well, you take some damage, but at least it blocks, right?
Yeah, you take about 9 damage.
Well, at least it dies.
Yeah, it does. And then they recast it tax free.
It's also not bad with Scarab God. Like getting this back with Scarab God is nice. You can use it again. Yeah, I think this is going to be played. And not necessarily as a commander itself. I'm not sure. Maybe you can build a mono black deck actually, but I don't think it's better than any other choice.
Well, that is just about that, my friends. Well, this has been probably the longest episode that we've ever made, and but it's good to get across all the cards that we expect to have an impact in Brawl. If you think we've missed anything, or you'd like to share your thoughts or feelings about any of the cards in M19 that you maybe anticipate will or won't see in Brawl, we really do want to hear from you. Send us an email. Stacking60s@gmail.net is the best way to get at us, or you can jump on our website and use the contact form there. But we really are keen to hear your thoughts. If there's something that you think we missed, or a card that we over or under evaluated, or you just want to tell us how wrong Jamin and Toffel are with what they said about these cards, then by all means, please get in touch. It's always great to hear from you. I think that's just about that, though. I think we're in a position now we can wrap up the show. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Stacking 60s, the Brawl podcast. It's been great to hang out with you. It has been a long one. I hope you've enjoyed it. Certainly, we got a lot out of having these discussions and teasing out, you know, the arguments about all the cards that we talked about. Again, if you want to get in touch with us, once again, all the details that you need to do that are on our website, stacking60s.net. It's there. You can find old episodes. You can find links to our Twitter accounts. You can find links to Yamin's streaming on Twitch, our YouTube, our Discord, and of course everything else that you might want to know about the show. Their deck lists we tend to put up as well. So everything is on the website there. It is coming up to the end of the month. We are going to be giving away boosters in the first week of July. It's next week. Wow, that's come up on us really quickly. And we give them away to patrons. So if you want to become a patron of the show, then you will be automatically entered into the monthly booster giveaway bonanza. We gave away 30 last month, and we're giving away another whole stack this month. So Patreon, jump on our Patreon if you want to be part of that. You've got about a week to get involved there. But apart from that, I think that's just about it. We are going to give away boosters now to wrap up the show, as we always do, with Toffel's tweet. Each week, we pick one of the tweets that's been sent out with the hashtag Toffel's tweet. Toffel reads it out, and if it's your tweet, you win 5 boosters. Simple as that. Let's get to it with Toffel's tweet.
Toffel's tweet. Incoming. All right. This week's Toffel's tweet comes from somebody who's dear to my heart and very important to me. It's from Stacking Sixties. Woo!
Oh yeah!
Wow!
Great! I can't believe we won.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. Like we had rough competition, but turns out lately we actually didn't have rough competition for now. Stacking Sixties.
Easy game.
Yeah, you can say that. Said. Don't forget, you can win 5 boosters by entering hashtag Toffel's tweet. And I just want to remind you, actually, this is true.